Hi, I'm Kristen Fairchild. I am the founder and executive director of Chain Reaction, and I am so excited to get to share with you today the Chain Reaction story. The history of Chain Reaction is, it started in 2003 when I went down to South Florida and met the Manateens. There were two sisters that started the program, and they had 10,000 kids volunteering. I was young and stupid and said, hey, why not? I'll bring this back to our community. And we started with 10 teenagers. Chain Reaction's evolved to be, it's based on one quote, and it's the John Adams quote, which says there's two types of education in the world. One that teaches us how to make a living, and the other one that teaches us how to live. The school system teaches our kids how to make a living, but it is our job as a community to teach teens how to live, and that's through service combined with character education. In 2003, like I mentioned, we started Chain Reaction. We started with 10 teens, and I would borrow with my nonprofit executive directors and say, hey, how about a 17-year-old? Do you want to try out a 15-year-old? What about a 13-year-old? We let the teens know that it would take a lot of hard work, and they probably wouldn't have the most fun things to do in the beginning. But if they did a good job, it would get better, and they did a phenomenal job. They always exceed my expectations. And teens were starting to be put on board of directors, and they were developing their own projects. And we became the strongest volunteer force in our community. From 2003 to 2007, we grew to 650 teens. And in 2007, we won the Impact 100 grant. This is a group of women that each donate $1,000, and together they pool their money and invest in a nonprofit. We received $118,000, and it took our pen and paper organization to online. No longer did teens have to call between the hours of 8 and 5:30 to volunteer. They could sign up at 2 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We track all their volunteer hours for their scholarships, and it's a phenomenal system. That year alone, we grew to 1,000 teenagers. We really looked in 2009 and said, okay, why are some of our kids being more successful than others? And this is the Teen Volunteer Center. I work for these guys. They are my boss. I don't make decisions. I just empower teens to change their world. And in 2009, we realized that it was the kids that were coming on a daily or weekly basis to lead Chain Reaction, that character education that was really making the impact. So we looked at what we learned from them, and we came up with 4 fundamentals. It was discovering their gifts and talents, uniting together as a team, believing that everything was possible, and persevering because life is hard. We started our first teen convention based on those 4 fundamentals. And in 2010, we were offered an old school through a church that we could use their office space. So we were given 4 rooms, which is now the Chain Reaction Center. And now every day from the hours of 3:30 to 5:30, teens come and they plan, they learn leadership development, they have personal growth. And I do always tell the teens that personal growth is not hazing, although they don't believe me. And we're placing teens all over the county, 200 to 400 kids a month in service through our nonprofits. And that's our Chain Reaction story. I'd like to introduce you to Wayne Dell. When I talked earlier about the first initial 10 teens, that would be Wayne. He was one of them. Wayne went to Pensacola High School in the IB program, and now currently just graduated from
the University of Virginia in May.
And he might be a little bit tired because he just flew in from
Beijing today.
And what are you doing in Beijing?
I'm participating in a year-long Chinese intensive language program. I was a Chinese major in college along with economics, and I am there until May. And then after that, I'll graduate and find a job.
That's very good. Like I mentioned earlier, with our alumni, we use them a lot to find out what works, see what's working in college, what's making the big impact. And I obviously, for the past 9 years, have checked a lot in with Wayne. So tell me, Pensacola IB, graduated with a 4-point bazillion, then went to UVA, had multiple scholarships. And so what did Chain Reaction? How did we teach you how to live? What brought value?
Yeah, so I had a really great academic background when I went off to college, but I think and so did all of my friends and the people that I met at the University of Virginia, but I think that the discerning factor for me was the fact that I had in high school this amazing growth experience that none of my friends had even a chance to enjoy until college. You know, people go to college and they find themselves, they find what they want to do with their lives. But for me, a lot of that foundation happened in high school. And I remember going through my career at PHS and seeing my friends, and the depth of experience that I was enjoying was kind of on a much deeper level than what they had. So it was a really great thing for me to go to college and I already have that growth experience, to be leagues ahead of my colleagues.
What were some of the things that you identified here?
So here I found my interest in foreign languages and in arts education, and the arts in general. I worked with the Pensacola Opera while I was here in Pensacola, and I graduated from the ME program. And when I went off to college, I pursued those interests in the musical theater community at the University of Virginia and a few other nonprofits and arts education communities, as well as being a Chinese major, combining that with my interest in economics and my math strengths, and eventually will pursue a job in finance. But I had a year up on all my friends who were trying to figure out what majors they wanted to do in college. So.
Well, and with Wayne too, he says works at the Pensacola Opera. He volunteered and actually served on the board of directors. And I think the great thing that Chain Reaction is it helped you figure out what you wanted.
Yeah.
And that's the wonderful thing. That's what we're trying to change at Chain Reaction. We're systemically trying to change the way 13 to 18-year-olds are raised. You shouldn't have to be like Wayne's friends that started to really figure out who they were and what they wanted their junior year in college. He got to start there, like hundreds of teens have done now. We're now in the thousands that have had that experience. And that begins with service. And that's what teen volunteerism is. It's empowering teens to change their world through service. And Wayne is a perfect example of that. Thanks, Wayne.